So yes, I am on a road trip, and I normally don't just travel or dress in swimsuit tops and linen pants when I'm doing some shopping and all, and because I have done a little shopping in downtown Clayton. So, and I completely had on a different attire for that. But when I got to this little spot and I was like, it says there's a lake, and then I look over and there was a picnic spot. And the sun is shining, it's 75 degrees. It's perfect. I really opened the back of my car and went in my little overnight bag and pulled out this swimsuit top and stripped down and put it on. About 5 minutes after that, of course, a truck, pulled, went driving by, and I was like, whew, that was close. But anyway, isn't this cool? So there's a walking trail here too. This is Black Rock Mountain Lake, or Black Rock Lake. I'm not exactly sure what to call it, but it's really sweet here. They have a really great trail. Oh, look at the beautiful flower. Yeah, so many surprises. They have signs all around here that tell you not to pick the wildflowers, so I won't. But just showing you how special the North Georgia mountains are. Look at this. Look at all the wildflowers right here at the water. Yeah. I wonder what those are. Somebody might know. They're so pretty. Look at all the glimmers on the lake. I don't know if you can see them. It's a beautiful day. Just a beautiful day. I am so blessed. I feel so grateful to get to do this out in nature today. I really needed this. I needed this moment. Anyway, I hope that everyone gets to take a little time for yourself. And oh, look, this is why they call it, I would think this is why they call this place Black Rock Mountain. Because everywhere there are these rocks, So they have signs that tell you no swimming, which I really want to break the law. I want to jump in. I do have a beach towel with me, so don't put it past me. Plus, I need to tinkle. Yeah, here's some more. Oh, look how beautiful this is. So right behind me, you see the rocks? I am drawn to Appalachia. I don't know, I feel like I was here in a past life or something. Look at the clouds. It's a beautiful day, Pinch me, somebody pinch me. Can't be real. So in a minute, after I finish my little cup, I'm going to try to figure out how to get to this cemetery I spotted that's across the road and up a hill, but I didn't see an entrance to it. So maybe I need to drive down a little further, but I'm going to figure it out, y'all, because I cannot pass up a good cemetery, especially one that was unmarked, that I didn't even know about. And it's just like I was supposed to find it, because there are no coincidences, right? All right, bye, y'all. I'll be back. Well, I always look forward to talking to Hannah. This is our third show, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I get so excited because I always learn so much from you. And just yesterday when you said, hey, you want to film? I'm like, sure. I mean, it's like filming a happy hour, it's like putting being a fly on the wall between two girls just sharing like what they're thinking,
Yes.
and it's really
There's so much
fun.
wisdom.
Mhm.
There's so much. I mean, I gained so much from these too. Like, I just think our conversations are really thought provoking. And I don't know, something just told me, like, just set one up for tomorrow. And I was like, okay. So just listening to my inner knowing.
That's what we all should be doing. Well, you mentioned to me that, you're really studying into Atlantis and the whole, like the way the civilization was then is paralleling with things that are going on now. And when you say the word parallel, I think of like parallel universe. I feel like I've had those kind of things happen several times, especially with my best friend, Deborah. We're always going, wait, those people don't even see us. Like we are invisible to them. I really feel that's happened to us a few times. But I know that's not what you're saying about the parallels of the civilizations, but so I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, so like with paralleling, I mean, it definitely does happen between people. Like I think there's a lot of instances, even in my life, where there's just certain feelings that line up with other people's feelings. Like you're just kind of on the same wavelength. I feel like it happens with us too. Like there's been a lot of just like being like connective points that we've made. And as far as like the civilization, there's a lot of connections that could be made to what's going on right now. And I think a lot of it has to do with it being just like a direct replication of the I don't want to say unsolved, but like unhealed karma. Like the unhealed wounds that are present within the collective consciousness. So, the way that we are all our own expression of this collective consciousness, like we're still a part of that unit. And there's wounding within that timeline and within that, I guess, unit that we're each individually working through in our own experience. So there's a lot of stuff that happened in Atlantis that really just aligns with what's happening today so perfectly, because it's almost like spirits coming up and saying, hey, these are the issues that weren't solved with that civilization. If you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. And we're seeing that doom happening right now because this is essentially a replication of that karma. And it's actually really interesting because I was reading something today in this book by William Scott Elliott. Let me see. He was basically just talking about how a lot of like the socialist applications that many people in the country are pushing for have already been tried and like abandoned by ancient Atlantean civilizations. So he was basically saying that one of the subraces of Atlantis, they're called the Turanians, because there were 6 subraces in Atlantis, and the Turanians were one of the later subraces. And by this point, like Atlantis was on the decline. It had already reached its golden age and was kind of like coming back down. They basically started to suspend the idea of like a family unit. Like that became something that was disregarded. The whole idea of marriage became disregarded. And what's interesting was the Turanians were at war a lot of the time. They were a really just kind of ruthless race. They were super war-ridden, and they were specifically at war with the Toltecs, which is another subrace. We can get into it. It'll be like a rabbit hole. But they basically just like disregarded these ideas of like family and marriage so that the men could take part in the war that was happening during that civilization's period. And we're seeing this happening today because we're seeing a lot of people who are completely disregarding the idea of like a family unit. We're even seeing birth rates decline because people are just not having children because they're wanting to maybe work, develop their careers and stuff like that. And even in the Atlantean civilization, like there were laws passed where men could essentially suspend their role as like a father. And this was specifically so that they could go fight in war. And I feel like we're seeing that today. You see a lot of people who are disconnected from that sense of family. They don't have that sense of like united, I want to say like a united essence, a united energy within their home. And this creates wounding. And then that wounding expands and then it replicates. We get into familial karma and like family karma and repeating certain family traumas. It just runs rampant. We're kind of like a byproduct of that karma, of that particular path. So it's really interesting. Like there's just a lot of parallels that we're seeing now. And we can even almost kind of predict the moves of the current oligarchy by studying this society. Because we're seeing that karmic replication and we're repeating a lot of the same mistakes that we made back in Atlantis. And we see this specifically with the rise of socialism and the rise of like more communist mindsets and perceptions, which in their root can be really positive. Like on paper, it all sounds really great. But the reason that they keep failing, not just in our known history, but even in Atlantis, they tried socialistic tactics through these, suspensions of parental values and family values. The children were almost like given up to the state as property. And it was kind of like it was their responsibility to raise the next generations. And we're kind of seeing that happening now. It's really interesting. Like we're seeing this slow, like manipulation that's happening with this whole, specifically within the public school system. We'll be honest, like that's really where that ideology is kind of starting to express itself in its primitive form, but it's only going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue to see that growing and growing and growing. And I think that's why like homeschooling and like Waldorf style schooling is really popular, and it's increasingly becoming more popular because I think people are starting to kind of see through this, a lot of this.
My daughter is doing a charter school now, and she can just go when she needs to go to take quizzes. She can do most of her work online, but then she just has to go in to take the quizzes and test and things. And, and it opens, it's from 4:30 to 8:30, and she can just go at any time during that time span. She doesn't have to go 4:30 to 8:30. So she can have a job. She can, it's not all day long in that indoctrination asylum.
Yes, because that's really what it is. It's like a factory. It's literally like a factory. And I mean, we even see that with the whole school bell, like the school bell itself is it literally came from 19th century style factories. It's an indoctrination factory. Like it's meant to create worker bees, and it's not meant to create an individual, like independent thinking human being. So we're kind of seeing a lot of that karma. But the thing is it's not being expressed super overtly. Like it's very covert. It's very under the surface. It's like creeping in, this way of being, and this almost like political entrapment. We'll be honest. That's really what it is. It's creeping in on us like a fungus. It's just growing slowly until it's too late. And that happened with the Atlanteans as well. Like they were so focused on war and on like what was going on in the material world and what was going on in the material on the material plane, because they were a spiritual civilization, but they slowly lost connection with that over time. And we'll talk about their peak, because I think when people reference Atlantis, a lot of the times people will reference like their height, their golden age, which was only really like 100,000 year period in the whole of the civilization itself, because it's a really old civilization. I mean, it was millions of years old.
Wow.
And it just slowly decayed over time. And I think that the floods and the flooding, and I'm trying to think of what else happened, because there was multiple catastrophes that happened. It wasn't just like one overnight destruction, because a lot of people think it just kind of happened overnight. At least that's what a lot of the mythos kind of says, but it's really symbolic for just like a dark period, like a nighttime, like a dark era of the civilization that brought about these 3 different catastrophes that really sunk the land, and it really shifted the plates. Some people think it had to do with a polar shift. That's really what a lot of spiritualists and people in the community feel like. I think that's what a lot of people sense. And we're kind of even seeing a lot signs of polar shift in our current state, especially with all of the like hurricanes and the natural disasters that are happening. I definitely think there's something going on with the planet.
I do too. Makes me think of that song, I feel the earth move under my feet. I feel this. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, and also it's maybe a completely different, on a different tangent, but the artifacts that are being found, in like the Grand Canyon and in Tennessee. I mean, all these different things that they're like, okay, showing that there was major technology, like our phones. had something like this a long time
Yeah.
ago, because I see it. You see it in drawings and carvings and pottery, those kind of things. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Love it.
I agree. It's incredible how much evidence there is for an ancient advanced civilization, and people still deny it. People are like, no, that's complete bullshit. We're only 200,000 years old. But it's like there's so much evidence that points to us being way older than that. But now there's kind of like this new narrative that's being spun. And I think this was really brought about with shows like Gaia and like Ancient Aliens. It's being twisted into this whole like, oh, those were just aliens. They were just showing us the way. But a lot of these UFOs that the government has found are really just reproductions of our own technology. Like everything that we see that's unidentifiable is something that was probably from Atlantis. They basically found a lot of this tech, or they re-engineered a lot of this tech, because there's so much money that's being moved around that we don't know about. Black budget money, black budget tech that they're building, things that we can't even conceptualize of, that things that are not being shown to the public. Yeah. I mean, we have no idea what the human mind is capable of and what it has been capable of over the course of its existence. So a lot of these UFOs and these unidentified objects are really not extraterrestrial. Like they're from Earth, like they're our own tech, just from many, many years ago. And what's interesting is, when you watch movies like Star Wars, the whole movie itself starts off with a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it starts in the past, and there's this, advanced spacefaring civilization that, they're very much human.
Yeah. I've never seen Star Wars.
You've never seen Star Wars? Oh my gosh. I feel like you would really like it.
Maybe I will. My son, of course, he loved it so much. And I don't know, I never watched it with him. He never watched it. And my girls never.
You should. I think you would really enjoy it. At least the original ones. I haven't seen any of the new ones that came out past, I guess, like the 2010s. I've only seen the original 6. But
now that I've kind of dived into all of these kind of things, these kind of subjects, now I think I would really enjoy it. But before, it was just, that could never happen,
Yeah, there's so much wisdom that can be derived from those movies. I mean, even the whole idea of like the Force, and I think it's the midichlorite count, which is what determines like who's a Jedi and who's not. Like all of that stuff reflects in the real world. Like the people who are making these movies are tapping into timeless wisdom. They're super duper connected, whether they know it or not, because some people don't even really know that they're channeling this wisdom. They're just creating, and it's just flowing through them,
And it might possibly be something they've done before. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like they're just reliving that karma. They're back here to bring that expression again in the current era. I think Tolkien's the same with Lord of the Rings. I think Lord of the Rings, there's so much occult wisdom in that movie, in the movie series. It's just incredible. Like what these authors and what these writers were tapping into. It really is. It's mind blowing. It makes me want to like pick their brain, like I wish I could know like what they were thinking when they were writing these films and like where they derived their inspiration from. But there is so much wisdom and knowledge about an ancient advanced human civilization, like all over the world. And it's very subtle. And I think that we've intentionally been taught to not know what it looks like, so people overlook it. They don't even really know what they're looking at when they're seeing these symbols and when they're seeing this technology. To them, it's inconceivable,
Yeah.
But I think to some degree, like we all know, like deep down, that there's something more than just the timeline that we've been told about our story as a species. There's just so much. There's so much to explore and dive into in just Atlantis alone. But even, over the whole course of our existence, like even getting into Lemurian civilization as well. and how they kind of blended together. It's a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. Like it really is.
It is.
It truly is a field of study.
I like watching Gigi Young a lot. I used to watch, she was one of the first that I kind of started watching whenever I started getting into all of this. And yeah, she's a wealth of knowledge too. Like Rudolph.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Who she studies mainly, I think.
Yeah, she is, I think a wealth of knowledge was such a great way to put it. Yeah, somebody had shown me Gigi Young, a good friend of mine, a few years back. I think it was back in 2020. Yeah, I think it was back in like 2019, 2020 when I started like watching her content. And I mean, she completely transformed my own spiritual teaching experience, because I mean, I had already been making content by the time that I had found her channel. But it was just like something clicked and like something connected. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like she's verbalizing a lot of the things that I've been intuitively feeling. And it's almost incredible because sometimes like I'll think something and then she'll post a video about it. It's like super incredible. But she is truly like a vast wealth of knowledge. Like you said, it was just, that was such a perfect way of describing it.
Like for me, I met this girl for the first time up in North Georgia. I've got this, something just keeps drawing me up to Appalachia. So this girl, I just met her. We were just at tables next to each other at lunch. And we were just kind of drawn to each other. We start talking and she says, I'm from here. Like I'm a native. And I said, it just like came out of my mouth. I said, you're Egyptian. And she went, yes. She says, we're Native American, but yes, Angie, I believe we are Egyptian. And it just like clicked, like, you know, that's what happens with me. I don't know if it's channeling. I don't know what it is, but I just like, it just pops out.
No, that's happened to me too. And it's kind of uncomfortable sometimes because you say it and you're like, oh my gosh, like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Like, did I really just say that? I've done the exact same thing. And I've done it with strangers. Like I've had situations where there was one time at the airport, it was very, very strange. I was sitting and waiting for my flight and this lady sits across from me and she's with her son. And her son just didn't really seem like happy. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like he was just it just felt miserable. Like it was a deep, dark depression that I couldn't even really describe verbally. And he kept kind of like, because the mom was very friendly. Like she was just chatting with me. We were just talking it up. And he was kind of like getting upset with her almost for like talking to me. Like almost as if like she was embarrassing him. I don't know. It felt like, you know, it's like teenagers, like, right. I was just like, okay, like he reminds me of my siblings. But I could just tell he was very sad and very distraught. Like there was just a very deep, dark energy that I felt from his soul. And right before we got onto the plane, I don't know, like something in me just took over and I just got up and I just gave him a hug and I said, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it hit me afterward. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that was a stranger. Like, why did you do that? Like, what is wrong with you? And I like went to the bathroom and I like had to call my roommate. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to tell you about this. And she calmed me down and she was like, okay, like you did that for a reason. And I actually had told my mom about it later. And she was like, you know what? Like that happened to my friend Lisa. She said that like her friend had been in a bathroom and she was like crying about a man. And this lady comes into the bathroom and she was just like, don't go back to him or something like that. Like she said something that really just resonated with my mom's friend. And her telling me that just made me feel better about it, you know?
Yeah. Well, back around Christmas time, I was in a crystal shop and a woman came in to shop and she seemed very like out of place. Like she didn't feel comfortable in there. And I just, you know, I was in there for probably 20 minutes before I spoke to her, but finally I just went over to her and I was like, who are you shopping for? Said, my son, he's getting into
things like this. And I said, how old is he? And I said, what kind of things? And I said, like tarot cards. She goes, yes, he's mentioned that. What is that? And I was like, well, they're over here. And then she started, as we talked to each other, she got so excited that she started buying herself crystals. And I was showing her things on my YouTube. It's like,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
And now we've kept in touch. She said that me talking to her made her accept her son, and for his newfound uh
Belief system.
yeah, and now she's all into it. We talk all the time.
That's really beautiful, Angie. That's a really beautiful story. That's a really beautiful story. Oh my gosh. I was actually gonna say you might have like activated her, because I almost had like this vision of you just like lighting like a little torch above her head, and like now there's this flame. Like
It
you just like lit
definitely,
her up.
everything changed. Even the guy working there, he was whoa like whoa the energy.
That's
Because
amazing. I mean, I think that we definitely are like lighting torches for people, and just being like, it's the thing is we think it's like words, something we say, something we do, and but those are really just the manifestations of like an energy signature that's being sent out and is, lighting up in the other person so that they can go forth and do the same to their family and friends. And it's just this really beautiful expansion process. And, it's awesome to be a part of it.
Another thing of going back to the Atlantis thing is like crystal technology. I'm so interested in it. I use them, but I don't really know a whole lot about them. But I've just been thinking, like, this neighborhood I live in is called Crystal Hills. And I've always thought, I wonder, and I am big time like about this land that I live on. I'm such a caretaker for it. It just means a lot to me for some reason. Like, I just feel like it's really sacred. And I know all land is sacred, but I want to make sure that I put boundaries around it, and
Yeah,
yeah.
it's magic. It really is the true expression of magic. Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. And honestly, you may want to look into like the mineral that's like primarily composed of that area, or like the mineral that makes up the rock and the ground in that area, because you never know, like there may be crystal that you're literally sitting on and you may not even know it. That might be something to look into, like if you're on like a silicone mine, because I know there's a lot of like caves and stuff that have like silicone and selenite and stuff like that, like pretty common, like quartz crystals.
I find
You never know.
around here a lot. I do find a lot of selenite.
Oh, really? That's
do.
really interesting. Yeah, I mean, the earth itself is a crystal. I mean, we're kind of like crystals too in our own way. I mean, that's what a lot of spiritualists say, is that the most powerful crystal is you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when we were telling those stories about how we just say things to people. I'm like, well, maybe it's something crystal inside of me. I don't know, like something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're made out of minerals. I mean, at the end of the day, like our physical forms are just composed of various minerals and substances that are made up of the earth. We're just kind of like another reflection of our Earth's body in a microscopic form. We're like the Earth's cells.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that through that process, like you were mentioning, of just like speaking to somebody and being able to completely transform their life with just like a few words or just an action. I mean, that's our crystal, that healing activation that's, being brought forth.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's beautiful. Like we can do it ourselves. We can utilize the earth to do it as well. Like we can kind of work in this harmonious partnership where, we're almost like healing the planet. It's like nature healing itself.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to really just walk each other home and just to help inspire one another. But this tech is kind of being used in more, I guess I would say, like low vibrational ways. I don't really want to say like low vibrational. It's more from just like a self-interested manner, like looking for control, for power. That's what a lot of this stuff is being used for in the modern form. I mean, even with just like our phones, you know, and our screens and our devices, like all of that is made out of crystal and mineral as well. And that to some degree is being used against us.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we really get to choose, and we get to consciously be mindful of whether or not we give in to these subtle influences. But really, I mean, these are these are weapons, like to some degree, like our devices and social media can kind of be a weapon. I would say like TikTok itself is like kind of a weapon. But we're seeing all these weaponizations happen in like the most subtle ways, you know, like through social media, through our food, through our devices, and through these things that utilize crystal, you know, and utilize mineral, because we're really just a manifestation of mineral, and we connect with everything mineral. We connect with everything organic. But now what's happening is there's this movement to try to push all of these things, this technology specifically, and kind of spin it to where we integrate with it and we put it inside of us, which is not necessary. Like, we don't need to do any of that. We don't need to put any tech in our bodies, no chips, nothing.
You have
because
it.
Exactly, because we are the tech. We're the crystals. And it really is just, I think this is going to be the biggest social issue of the next like 10 to 15 years. We're going to see this rise in, I guess, like a push to transhumanism. It's already happening in very small ways, but I think even as this occult information starts to kind of hit the mainstream more and more, we're going to see this rise in utilizing that information to try to spin this narrative that, you know, it can be kind of a beneficial thing spiritually to link with these chips or whatever this, you know, biotech is. It's a very slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years for this to kind of evolve into something that entraps the people. So really the only thing that we can do is just educate and enlighten, you know, and make people aware.
I'm seeing so many more people all around just starting to kind of wake up to things, you know, whether it be the political things, the ugly things that have been going on for years. So they start with that. That's where I started. And then it gets more on a spiritual level. Yeah, just all around me and my children too. You know, it's really cool. Of course, my youngest daughter has been awake ever since she was little, just always been awake. Yeah.
Yeah. There's people that come into the world knowing, like they just remember. They never go through that process of forgetting. Some people have to deprogram that forgetting. And that actually kind of ties to Atlantis too, because in Atlantis, we didn't really have the same structure of like human form that we have today. Like, it evolved to get to this point. We didn't really have like a mind in the way that we know of today. Like, we didn't really rationally think things through. We just kind of remembered. We remembered previous incarnations. We remembered our connection to source. Your memory was what was trained more than your rationale or your intellect. The intellect didn't come until like the later Atlantean epoch, when, you know, they started to explore the arts and sciences, and they started to build all of this really advanced technology. It wasn't like that for the whole Atlantean the total of the civilization. Like, it didn't have this super advanced civilization. That really was only a small blip of the Atlantean epoch. Like, it was a very slow rise, and then it was kind of like a quick peak, and then it just fell back down. It was just like 100,000 year period that it had this golden era. And to us, that seems like a lot of time, you know what I mean? From this moment, it's just like, wow, 100,000 years, like that's a long time. But this civilization was very, very old. I mean, they lasted millions of years. And it's just incredible to kind of see the timeline the perceivable timeline, because there's stuff that we'll never know about them. There's information that's there and there's wisdom that's there that isn't accessible to our current manifestation of the mind, I guess, if I could say. It's just not accessible yet. But that's kind of the beauty of exploring this as a subject, is that there's more and more that comes out. There's more and more that comes into frame of reference and frame of mind with every passing day, and as time passes, that it's just kind of this never-ending exploration into further wisdom and, I mean, just complete and total fascination, because this society is truly magnificent to learn about, especially if you want to apply it to, what's going on today. There's so many things. Like it almost fills in the blanks. Like studying the civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria fills in the blanks for a lot of things that modern society would consider like unknown, or just kind of like chalks up to like paranormal or like aliens. There's a lot of connections that are made that you're just like, oh my gosh, like this makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense. Like the pyramids, the pyramids are a big one. A lot of people are just kind of like, where did they come from? How were they built? There's all these different stories and origin myths of where they came from. But they were really built by us. They were built by us as a technology. The pyramids are technology.
Wearing my pyramid earrings today. 2 little pyramids.
Oh my God. Are they crystal?
Yes. So I've had them for a long time. But there's a deer outside my window.
Oh, it's joining us.
But yeah, exactly. And I, growing up, I was taught like pyramids were evil.
Yes, a lot of people see the triangle specifically as like an evil shape, but it's often affiliated with the occult, because it is just a technology. Like it's really just a transmitter. That's really all the pyramid is. It's a transmitter of energy, like any phallic symbol. That's what these civilizations were using. They were utilizing the basic principles of nature and just combining that with their knowledge of the world around them and creating magnificent earth-connected technology.
I remember reading a while back, and I think it was about Atlantis, maybe, or maybe not. But even the columns inside of the buildings, were used for healing. Have you heard that? Like just the columns. When you said phallic symbols, it made me think of like columns.
Yeah, they're often used in healing rituals because it's essentially like a channeler of energy. So it draws the energy in one end and then it projects it out the other end. So you can use these like columns, or just like even the crystal wands too. Like that's why crystal wands are often used like in healing, because it basically just like channels energy through, almost like an electric rod. You know how like people use those electricity rods? It becomes like a transmitter of energy, and it just completely absorbs and projects the energy where you need it to go. And that's why like the crystal grids. I don't know if you've heard of crystal grids. Yeah, those are super popular for that reason, because they're essentially just grabbing energy from the surrounding environment and like kind of digesting it in the crystal's molecular structure and then reprojecting that crystal's energy outward. So they're acting like a conduit, basically.
I've heard of crystal grids, but for anyone that's listening that doesn't know what they are, can you explain?
Yeah. So a crystal grid is basically just a setup of crystals. It can be any kind, in a geometrical pattern, to basically create an energetic impression in that particular pattern, because everything is really just mandalas. Yes. Like the whole world is just fractals. And people easily see this on psychedelics. That's why like people have the visuals on psychedelic substances. We don't need them to ascend. They're not necessary for ascension. You can have spiritual awakening without them, but they do lift that veil, allowing us to physically see the fluidity of our reality. And that's why people see like the mandalas, because that's really what our reality is composed of. It's just a series of fractals. And you can recreate these fractals in a geometric format with these crystals, and it creates an impression upon the quantum field that basically creates almost like technology. I mean, it's really spiritual technology. Like I was saying earlier, it kind of gathers up energy from the surrounding environment and digests it and then reprojects it out in a more healed format. So it would be, the energy would essentially align to whatever the crystal's meaning is. So if it's a rose quartz, you know, if you're using a rose quartz, that's aligned to the frequency of love and, you know, relationships and the heart. So when the energy becomes digested in this crystal, it takes on that essence and then it projects it out with that essence. So a lot of people will use various different crystals for different things, you know, like if they, you know, they want a money boost, they could use different aventurine, malachite. I'm trying to think of what else. Green jade, you know, a bunch of different green crystals. But the thing is even though these crystals have archetypal meanings that like we all associate, we can really give a crystal a meaning if we want to. Like we can change and decide what the crystal's meaning is. It's just that they already have like a natural resonance that they already kind of vibrate to. But because everything is intention, you can change a crystal's meaning if you intend.
Same with like moon water, or like I'll do that sometimes. I make moon water and I'll set an intention into that water, or like the cacao ceremony, you know, we set an intention into that cacao before we sipped it. And it's the same, I think. I totally believe it. So I'm getting ready to do a blue moon ceremony in my front yard.
Are you going to make moon water?
Yes. In my fairy fort, and I've got like this cauldron, and we're going to make a fire. We're going to write down things, my friends and I, and we're going to write down things that we would like to just get rid of, you know, and burn them.
That's really awesome. That's really awesome. And you guys could even incorporate the color blue if you wanted to take it a step further.
August.
Yeah, I've actually seen astrologers do that, where they'll set out on different like astrological transits. They'll put out water and then they'll save the water and they'll like label it as like, you know, Libra moon or like blue moon. They'll have all these different like little things of water.
I love
it's really cool.
I do a lot of like flower elixirs and all kinds of things. So
I love that kind of stuff. Like, I love it. I love like making perfumes and like it's really chemistry. It's the original expression of chemistry. You know, I feel like all the potions and the elixirs and stuff is just chemistry in its own form.
I've gone out in the rain to go pick the flowers because I'm like, well, they're clean from the rain. I don't have to, you know, wash them or anything. It's just, so everything is like pure. Yeah. Oh, I'm such a witch. That's what I've heard lately. I got told that there's someone that is afraid of me because says I practice witchcraft. But
oh no. Oh, I forget. It's the area. It's just the area. I mean, you're gonna get people like that being in this field, you know, just doing anything related to spiritual practice that's outside of dogma, you know.
It's so
you're gonna get that.
It's all right. It didn't hurt my feelings. It was like, yeah, I kind of am.
I feel like you know, there's a difference. There's a difference between sorcery and there's a difference between like genuine white magic, you know, and high magic. It's all in the intent. And there are people who give witchcraft a bad rep, you know, but at the end of the day, it's really just a label. Like we could even say that Jesus was a witch.
Yep, I know.
You know, and his disciples. That was really what they were practicing. They were just practicing the true essence of magic.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want to have that discussion because they have no frame of reference. You know, they, at the end of the day, like they don't really understand. They only have their perception of the good book, you know, of the Bible.
Right. And I'd want to say to this person that says this about me is that, you know, she goes to a prayer group every Monday, you know, and with all these other ladies. And I'm like, you are practicing witchcraft.
Yeah, it really is. It's like communal magic. It's like meditating together.
Yeah. And that's fine.
Yeah, because yeah, it's really just prayer is just meditation at the end of the day. And it's all just labels. You know, they're all just words referring to the same essences and practices. We've just created different words over time as language has evolved, and language is going to continue to evolve, and we'll eventually come up with new terminology and new things to describe these practices. And, you know, I think we're going to eventually have to evolve away from like the occult and using words like witchcraft too, because I just think that it has such a negative stigma that it can be really hard to get people to truly empathize and understand with like the work that you're actually doing. You know, they don't take you seriously. And even on the flip side, like you have people in the scientific community that if you mention witchcraft to them, they think it's ridiculous in their own way, you know, and it's really unfortunate and kind of I would say like it's just I'm trying to think of the word. It just doesn't really give it the credit that it deserves. You know, there's a lot of people that try to discredit it. And I think we're going to kind of see like a slow evolution away from these terminologies, and an evolution towards a language that, you know, everybody can kind of resonate with. And I think we're kind of seeing that with people using like energy work and all of that. Like all of that's magic too. It's all just magic. Everything is magic. I mean, we're just walking magic machines. That I don't even want to say machines, like we're just these mechanisms. Like we're living technology and we're magical technology. And it truly is fascinating. Like when you learn about all of these subtle processes within the human form, like we're practicing magic all the time. I mean, even the whole idea of spelling, like when you're writing down words, it's all just spells.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, everything is just a projection of energy, regardless of whether you're writing it. Because even when you're writing it, you're imprinting it on the quantum field. With every movement that you make, you're imprinting a signature of energy upon the environment around you. And that's really what yoga is doing. That's what Tai Chi is doing. It's just creating these different energetic impressions that will manifest in the material world as like they'll reflect in their own way. So it's truly magnificent, really, like who we are and like these beings that we can incarnate into. To be a human is a beautiful, beautiful blessing.
Yeah, it really is. What something I was going to say. Oh yeah, when you were talking about the mandalas, whenever I was little, I want to say I was like 5 or 6. I was in the back seat of my grandma's car. My grandparents were in the front seat. We were going on some trip, and I was doing like this, you know, like this. And she was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm making a kaleidoscope." And she was like, "Oh, we should get you one when we get up to." We were going to like up in the mountains, and she goes, "We'll go to that little shop, that little toy store, and get you one." And I was like, "I don't need one. I can see all these colors, like I could see the shapes, like this geometry and the colors and how they were connected." Yeah. And I said, and I said, and I can make them move. They're moving. And my grandmother thought, I'm sure she thought I was just, you know, imagining this or just pretending, but I really could. And I would tell her, like in the water of the pond, like at her house, that I could see it in the water too. When I would look in the water, I could see the different, like I would see like a drop of water would be a shape with colors. Anyway, so.
No, you could see basically the makeup, almost like the blueprint of our reality. And children are really tapped in. I mean, it's like, I think Manly P. Hall says that up until the 7th year, children are basically more intuitive than they are throughout the rest of their lifetime, unless they choose to reconnect with that part of self. But in the average human being, the psychic gift kind of goes away, not even really goes away, but just gets put on the back burner once the skull bones fuse together. So it's kind of interesting. Like a lot of children have these imaginary friends, and are having these experiences of, you know, premonitions and past life dreams and all of these things. Who's to say that it's real or that it's not fake, you know?
I had an imaginary friend when I was little. but I think it was an imaginary friend.
Well, the thing is like there's a lot of people that say that your imagination is kind of the connection to the spirit realm. Like our imagination is how we connect with the other side. And the thing is it can be kind of a dangerous thing too, because some people's imaginations, especially when unhealed, can take them to very dark places. And I think that's kind of where the manifestation of demonic experiences come from. We truly are creating our reality. And I think we see that with people who are experiencing demonic activity and kind of lower vibrational activity related to the spirit realm. It's really just a reflection of their emotional and internal state of being. And that's kind of, I think, what's spoken about very subtly in a lot of horror films, like a lot of paranormal horror films. You'll see kind of this reflection of like a lot of the problems that are going on within the household or within, you know, the family are being reflected in the paranormal activity that's happening, because we're really just creating it all.
For sure. There was a time a couple of years ago here, my husband and I were just having a really hard time. And during that time, there was a night where we both got scratched, like scratched. Like, you ever heard of that happening?
Yes. Yeah, that happens a lot to people.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the telltale signs of demonic activity is getting scratched or any kind of physical harm, because the thing is these beings can't really do anything to us unless we're in a very vulnerable state and our aura is weak. And it allows for them to kind of infiltrate the aura and be able to affect us and impact us. And it can be dangerous sometimes. I mean, some people's demonic activity can be dangerous, but I feel like it seldom gets to that point because the human being is very difficult to hijack. Like it's a very difficult vessel to hijack. These demonic forms can't take on a human form because the human being is too holy. That's why they have to manipulate people and kind of trick them into almost like letting them in, like a vampire, you know. But even then, like they can't stay in the human form. Like they'll get kicked out, you know, they can't take on the human form like the way our own soul can. That's why we have the etheric cord that's connected to us when we astral project, because it's that divine connection to our body. Like we can't even cut it. We can't do anything. It doesn't cut until it's our time to separate from the form.
Yeah, it's the ultimate umbilical cord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so when that happened, I mean, it frightened me. I thought something, you know, because it was dark in the room, we were in the bed, and it's like where my hand was, I'm going to say like on his, how was it? Like on his shoulder, that, and it scratched me and him. Like it went, yeah.
That's really scary.
Yeah. But it scared me for just like a day. But then I immediately was just like, I do not consent. And I just went into meditation and I cleansed and I just got my mind right. And, you know, and it's never happened again. But I know that was some kind of demonic, something dark.
Yeah, absolutely. They get invited in to spaces where there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of like frustration and anger, because they feed off of these emotions. You know, they're like mosquitoes. They see it and they're just like attracted to it. So when you heal yourself and whenever you take care of yourself, it almost repels them.
Yeah.
It's like the insect repellent for these demons. Because they're just an extension of us. Like they're just a manifestation of our own inner turmoil and like our own personal issues being reflected in the immediate environment.
Well, I must be doing something right, because I feel like I repel a lot of folks I don't really feel comfortable being around anyway. So
I do too. And it's weird how it happens. Like they'll just walk away or you just like won't see them, or, you know, it's just, it ends up being very coincidental.
Yes. Coincidence. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So funny. Oh gosh.
But yeah, that's really interesting that you had a demonic presence that scratched you. Like I've never had anything like that happen to me, but I have had situations where I've been touched. You know, I felt like a brushing on my back. I felt it on my arm before. And what's interesting is I've had it happen to me when I'm holding crystals. Because before I got into all of this work, I used to be very into like paranormal stuff, and I always loved like ghosts, and I was very interested in all of that.
Me too.
So I would go on these ghost tours, and I would always bring my crystals with me for like protection, but I didn't realize it didn't occur to me until I went to one of these and I had gotten touched. And I think that it might have actually scratched me now that I think about it, or it left some kind of red mark on my back. It might not have been a scratch. I think it was just like a red mark. It was something that was identifiable because the people who were running it like came over and they like looked at my back and there was like something there. And one of them saw that I had been holding crystals, and then he was like, oh, wait, look. And then he like shines his flashlight on my crystals. And they were like, oh, well, that's why you got touched, because you had these crystals. Wow. And it clicked. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like that makes so much sense. You know, they were drawn to the energy that these crystals produce, because they're really just producers of energy that these spirits can then take and use to manifest in the material realm. Because it takes a lot of energy to densify into 3D. Right. It takes a lot of energy. And that's why manifestation for some people can be so tricky, because it's the process of materializing an etheric experience that's going on in your imagination. It's the same thing with like spirits and like the presences of past souls and demonic presences. They have to utilize certain tools sometimes, like crystals, or for some people, it's like static electricity, or for some spirits, it's like static electricity. They have to utilize those forces in order to materialize here in 3D.
Yeah. Did you see on our last video, someone commented, and she was right, that right when you said the word, it was electric or something like that. Did you hear it? It's like, zzz, like
I did. I went back and I heard it. There was like some kind of, I don't know, there was something going on with like the connection of maybe one of the wires, or I don't know, but that was very, very interesting and synchronistic.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I've had things like that happen. Also filming before with someone else, and I have this thing with this owl that lives here, that he'll just, or it's a she actually, but she'll just come and just at the right time, you know, or fly. I'll be talking about her like on a walk, videoing the walk. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, I hope the owl shows up. And she just does. She just like flies right across my path. Well,
that's interesting.
Yeah. Once I was, she warns me about people too. It's happened twice now for sure. Once I was walking my path with a person and I started feeling kind of, I don't know, just kind of funny about him. And this owl just comes, I mean, and she gets like so close and so down low on the branches, like just right there. And she kept following us. And I said, I think she's trying to warn me about something. And sure enough, a little while later, we were back in the house, and I'm not going to go into what all was going on, but it was just something that he saw on the news. The TV happened to be on, and I was saying, oh, everything's going to be okay with that. And this person just grabbed my wrist and left bruises on my wrist. Like he was like, you just don't even know what you're talking about. And anyway, so that owl was warning me about him, and I have not really spoken to him since, and that was over a year ago. But then another time I was videoing like this on Zoom, and where I was set up, there was a window behind the screen, so I could see out a window. And this person that was on filming with me and my friend Bryce, just, I don't know, just didn't feel right about her. And she said something, and right when she says something that really was kind of shocking to me, or like I didn't feel good about, I look up and I say it in the video. I go, oh, there goes my owl. Like she just came right to the window right then.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, but
yeah, people say cats are like that too. Like apparently cats are very perceptive of like people's intentions, and they can really direct their energy into reading somebody very well.
I believe it. I've got a cat. He's really perceptive. He seems to be very perceptive, and he sees things all the time in the house. He's always like looking, I'm like, what are you looking at? I'm like, I don't want to know.
Just absorb it.
Yeah.
Because they're like sponges. They absorb negative energies. There's like this old wives' tale to like let your cat walk through a house before you move in or before you go into a house. Like let your cat walk through because it'll like absorb all of the energies around. But yeah, they're definitely very connected. And owls too. I think all creatures of the night are very connected intuitively. And you may even want to look into like your connection to Athena, because Athena is represented by the owl and she's the goddess of wisdom.
Right. We have an Athena statue here at Athens, with it being Athens.
That just clicked in my brain right now. That's so crazy. Yeah, you definitely should look into Athena, because maybe there's some kind of connection that you have to her essence.
Yeah, I will look into that. And about cats again too, I think they're grounded. They're so grounded. I think that's why they always land on their feet. I mean,
yeah,
you could throw them and they're going to land on their feet,
Yeah, they're definitely very interesting creatures. They really are. And I mean, I think that they can pass between realms all the time. Ever since I've had cats, I've always seen shadows in the corner of my eye. Like, and I'll think it's my cat, and then I'll just go and see, where she's at, and she's sleeping in a room, like, on the other side of the house or whatever. It's crazy. Like, and I'm like, I know I just saw her. Like, that must have been her astral form.
Yeah, I believe it. I've got a friend here down the road that has seen her cat. Like, well, she saw her cat several times after it died, like walking through the house. And so
that's really interesting. I've heard stories of that too. I've never had that happen to me personally, but I've heard stories of people seeing their pets after they pass away. I mean, it's crazy. It truly is a holographic reality. Like we really are so interconnected with all of these different realms. And I think to completely deny that is ludicrous. It really is.
I think it makes way more sense than not believing in it. And to me, I mean, it's a pretty boring place if you don't see or expect that there could be more.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. I'm like, and even if it isn't real, I have a lot of fun. So why not? Why not believe in this stuff? Even with like the whole Atlantis thing. I mean, it's such a fascinating civilization, and like there's so much wisdom to be gained from interdimensional knowledge, and just connecting yourself to the alternate realms. There's so much that can be learned, and there's so much value that can be added to a person's life when they just open themselves up. They don't have to adhere to any particular way of being, but even just allowing the freedom to explore. I think people are denying themselves that when they completely shut out any connection to these ideas.
What is the timeline between, like, say, we got Lemuria, Atlantis, and Tartaria?
Tartaria, so like Tartaria is in the Turanian race of Atlantis.
Okay.
Is that what Tartaria is? I don't think I've ever heard of Tartaria.
Oh, okay. Awesome. That's something.
So maybe you can educate me.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it either. But yeah, a lot of people have been studying, I see a lot of things about Tartaria and just the different civilization that was before this, that was like the golden age. So
I'll have to do some more research into Tartaria, because that I feel like I've heard the name, like it sounds familiar. And there's also a conspiracy theory about a guy that is from the land of Taured. They call him the Taured man. And he just literally appeared, and he claimed that he was from an alternate civilization called Taured. And he just like literally appeared out of nowhere one day and then just disappeared again. And people think that he was from an alternate dimension.
I heard about that. Yeah, I have heard about that. I think it's the same guy.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of connection. I mean, I've definitely known that there's alternate races aside from the Atlantean and Lemurian civilization, because I mean, even the Hopi civilization talks about how there's been a few civilizations that have been a predecessor to the current one. And all of those civilizations have cyclically risen and fallen. And we're just kind of like repeating this cycle. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. But I've definitely been focusing most of my attention to Atlantis specifically. I think it's just kind of like almost like the first stepping stone down into awakening this wisdom to the masses, you know, because it's kind of collectively known, like people are aware of it. There's a lot of knowledge and information out there on it. But it really is just a complete and total tip of the iceberg, we'll say, of a complete, like, I don't even know how to explain what we're digging into with the exploration of these ancient civilizations. There's just so much to be gained and there's so much to learn. But I'll have to look into Tartaria because it probably, I'm assuming it connects to Atlantis.
Sure. I don't know. It just feels like it does.
Yeah, because Lemuria connects to Atlantis. I mean, it was pretty much, Atlantis was birthed out of Lemuria. So they're most definitely, I would say that they're connected because there's no really distinct separation because I think all of these civilizations blend, you know, just kind of like how the fifth and current root race is birthed out of Atlantis. Like we were kind of blended out of that race of beings or of humans who survived the catastrophes. You know, they were able to migrate, they were able to go to other places and start roots and create what is now known as the Aryan race, which is the fifth root race. And we're going through our own cyclical rise and fall. And we're kind of seeing that happen right now. You know, a lot of the current themes that we have going on are just like karmic repetitions, you know, as we were discussing earlier.
I really feel such a connection with Appalachia. I feel like there's something, well, and up in that area too, there was Laurasia. I don't know. I want to study all these different civilizations and just how they all connect and the timeline of them. Maybe they all happened at the same time. I don't know. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, well, there is a race of Atlanteans called the Turanians, but they were like a sub race of Atlantis that was kind of, you know, they may have, I don't know, I need to look and see where they migrated to because there were certain, they call them sub races. They're just smaller pockets of the Atlantean civilization. So like the same way that we have like, you know, races and like different subsects of humanity, like culturally, there were different subsects of humanity within Atlantean culture that kind of made up the whole of the Atlantean civilization. So there was a race of Atlanteans called the Turanians, and they, I want to say, may have even migrated up in that direction. But I think that they may have been closer to Russia because the Atlantean civilization and the continent looked a lot different than it does today. So there's a lot of land that was there at the time that's not there anymore because it sunk, you know, with the catastrophe. So there's just so much that we've lost, like in these catastrophes, that it makes it really hard to piece together a lot of the evidence. But that's kind of where the intuitive and psychic wisdom comes in. We can really pull in information and fill in the gaps. The key is just making sure you're filling in the gaps with the right information and actually tuning into something higher as opposed to something that's just going to generate more confusion.
true. Sometimes I can, you know, down a crazy rabbit hole, and then I'm like, okay, stop.
Yes, it's so easy to spiral. It's so easy to just spiral. I feel like I do it a lot in these calls. I just like go off on a tangent and then I just spiral. I'm like, okay, I need to come back. Let's reroute this train. But yeah, there was a race of Atlanteans that were kind of, I guess they may have settled in Appalachia because I know that there was a distinct race of Atlanteans in the Appalachian era or area. And I think that's why with that tweet that I sent you the other day about the Appalachian Mountains,
Yeah.
I definitely think there are creatures that live up there, and they're probably these experiments from the Atlantean civilization when they were conducting these genetic
Right. You were talking about that before.
abominations.
Yeah. Like the Sasquatch and the, what else is there? I don't know. When I was up in North Georgia last weekend, well, I guess I'll tell that story real quick. So,
Yeah.
or I've already kind of told you, but I was on my way up to Highlands, North Carolina from Clayton, Georgia. I spent the night with a friend, and I had my little cooler packed with some snacks and had my overnight bag because I had spent the night with her. And I'm heading on up Highway 441 going to Highlands, North Carolina, just for some sightseeing, really, just to spend some time by myself and have some solitude and some. It was a beautiful, like completely blue sky day, and 75 degrees. It was so nice. Just it's like God rolled out the red carpet for me that day. Well, I'm going down the road, and I've got the radio on, and I heard the word BlackRock on some news that was going on the radio. And I don't know what they were talking about, but I heard BlackRock. And at that time, I looked at my clock, and I really always pay attention to the angel numbers, or, the synchronistic numbers, repeating numbers. And it said 1111. And then I looked over, and on the other side of the road was a sign that said BlackRock State Park, left lane. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to go. So I passed it. I had to do a U-turn, turn around, and then go back up that way. So I go up to the BlackRock Mountain State Park, and I end up at BlackRock Lake. There's a lake there. I've never been here before, but I started just feeling something. So at that lake, I was getting like just this feeling that at any minute something could come out of the water, like something that lives there, because the signs everywhere that said no swimming. And I was like, why can't I go swimming here? I had my swimsuit in my overnight bag, and I just changed into it right there at my car. And I kind of laid out on the top of a picnic table in the sun for a little while and did some meditating, and I went on some walks. And then, like you were saying earlier, how you're all used to be into ghosts and things. Well, I love cemeteries. And
I love them too. I really do.
Look across the road. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a cemetery right there up the hill. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, because there was nothing telling me there was going to be a cemetery, no sign or anything. So like, I got to figure out how to get up there. So I found out the little driveway to get up to the cemetery. And you and I were talking about copper in our last video. And I've been dreaming about copper too. I dreamed that there was a ball, like a crystal ball, I guess. And I was holding it and looking in it, and I could see like copper spiraling, like a wire inside of it. And it was moving around, and I was like, what are you doing? Like I was talking to, I was like, what are you doing in there? You can't do anything inside the ball. You need to come out of the ball. And then it just came out, and then it spiraled over. This dream makes no sense at all, but it came out of the ball. And I said, finally. And I took the copper wire, and then I stuck it over in one of my flower pots, like with a plant, like one of my house plants. And then
that's really interesting.
It was one of my plants that was like drooping, its leaves are, it's not real healthy. And the copper wire, like in my dream, just all of a sudden the plant just came alive again. Anyway, that was a crazy dream. But so I've been thinking a lot about copper. And then, so the very first tombstone I see when I get to the cemetery says Copper. It's the last name Copper. I just thought that was kind of interesting, just because of the way I think. But then,
that is,
yeah. Then I'm looking around, and I'm videoing. Actually, I have a little video that I'll share with this maybe, of inside the cemetery, and I'm like, oh my goodness, look at that! There were all these headstones that had been moved. I mean, they were just all together. They weren't, spaced enough to have actual like bodies buried in front of each one. but they were all together and they were all very, very old, like early 1800s.
Yeah, it looked like an older cemetery.
And from there, you can look over and see the lake. And when I saw the lake, like just through the trees, it just made me think, I thought, that lake is hiding something. That lake is hiding something. There's something underneath there. I don't know. I just really think there's something there. I think there was community there that's been covered up. I think it's something. I don't think it's, I mean,
Well, and then it's also interesting that like you can't swim in the lake.
can't swim in it. Mm-mm.
Like it makes me wonder if that doesn't have something to do with it. Like I think your intuition was picking up on something for sure.
And anyway, so I'm going to figure that out because I love a good mystery. So
Yeah, you could even look into like the history of the area and kind of like see like what has been there before, you know. I'm sure that there's some kind of documentation of something. You could even probably look up that cemetery.
yeah, I will. I haven't done it yet. I'm going to ask my friend Sarah, the girl that I mentioned earlier that is Native American that lives up there, and the one that I said, oh, you're Egyptian. So another thing was I didn't even really know where I was. I was not really paying attention to where I was going. I just saw State Park, you know, the Black Rock, and I just turned in there. Well, lo and behold, after I leave the cemetery, I also find a church. I go and look around the church, and and I'm like, I've got to find my way back home. I'm going to try to do it without my GPS because I just really like to kind of just explore and just not know where I'm going. And if I get lost, then you can log it into the GPS and find your way back out. Well, I end up at a crossroads, and it's the road that Sarah lives on. And then another, yeah, it's like, oh, she lives right down the road from here. She's got
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's a really weird synchronicity.
Yeah. Yep. So I love things like that. And I know I was supposed to go there. I know that I was.
Well, it's really interesting that you mentioned about her being Egyptian, because that was one of the places that Atlantis migrated to. And there's a lot of Native American cultures that talk about how they come from an ancient advanced civilization. You know, that was in the East. They talk about it being from the East. In Mexico, like in Aztec lore, they talk about Quetzalcoatl coming from the East, you know, their god. And a lot of people think Quetzalcoatl was from Atlantis. So, I mean, who's to say that, you know, she might not have Atlantean blood? Like she may not be descendant from this civilization.
She's also very tall.
Well, that's interesting. I actually have some notes about that. Let me see.
You want to come meet Hannah? She would love to see you, Rosie. Come say hi to Hannah. Rosie.
It's Joyner's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Joyner.
Thank you.
Come say hi to Hannah.
Hi.
This is my daughter.
Nice to meet you. I like your crystal necklace.
Thank you.
We've been talking a lot about crystals today. This is her friend Joyner.
Hello.
Hi, I heard it's your birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's finally here.
All right.
All right. Sorry.
Okay.
Um,
Don't forget to take that delivery.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
there was some notes that I had about their height and how they were really tall.
Yeah, she's really tall. Sarah is really tall.
Well, a lot of people think that Lemurians were giants, you know, and that we've just kind of shrunk over time as we descended in consciousness, and that we're slowly starting to evolve back to a tall height, to being tall humanoids, or not humanoids, but humans. There was something that I was reading. I thought I had it in my notes. It was talking about how the various different Atlantean civilizations were tall. Like they started at like 6 foot, and some of them went all the way to 8 feet. And what's kind of interesting about that too is in James Cameron's Avatar, the beings are also really tall. And Egyptian culture itself, ancient Egyptian mythos, has these statues of these giant humans, these super tall humans, and they have different levels. Like they have one that's like minimally tall. They have another one that's like 40 feet, and they have another one that's like 60 feet, you know. And I think it's to symbolize the various heights that we've attained through our de-evolution into matter. because we were tall beings at one point. We were giants, like humans were giants in Lemuria. And I think Caleb was actually talking about this the other day. He was saying how in the promised land, it talks about how there were like giant grapes and like giant fruits that they were harvesting. And it talks about it almost being kind of like an Eden. And a lot of people think Eden was Lemuria.
Yeah.
It was a plant-like civilization that was very connected to nature.
Very colorful from what I've seen in my dreams.
I see it too. I know exactly what you mean by colorful. Like just
Almost like
I feel
animated. Like for me,
yeah.
almost like animated. I had a dream once where I was walking on land and it was all like black and white, I guess, like black and white. And as I walked, where I walked, everything came to life. It turned into like very, very like animated, like color. Everything was so colorful, like colors I can't even describe.
That's beautiful. I've had visions like that too, where like I'll walk somewhere and there'll be like light or color. I've had visions like that too, but I've also imagined every time I've had visions of Lemuria, there's always a lot of color. It feels very colorful. Well, I mean, if you even kind of look at documentation like from Rudolf Steiner and his description of Lemuria, and the Lemurians specifically, like they were kind of like etheric in the beginning, like they were just these etheric beings and they could kind of take on form and disband that form whenever they wanted. Before they started to kind of descend into matter, they were just like these etheric beings of like color almost, and there was just a lot of color. So I think when we perceive that and we kind of like try to envision that era, I think that's like what our current mind can understand of like what our form looked like back then.
I love when I have those kind of dreams. I have a lot of them, but
It feels very like nostalgic,
you
know?
It does. Not scary. It feels good. Like it's like, oh shoot, go back there. That was cool. I've seen also like a street here in Athens. I had a dream where I was walking down this street that I frequent all the time, but it was back in time, like maybe back to like the 1700s, not Atlantis, but like, just old world, just you had the candle maker and it was just like all these little shops.
That's really interesting. Maybe you incarnated during that era.
Yeah. That's getting on all these tangents, but it's so fun.
It is. I really enjoy the tangents. Honestly, I really do. I'm along for the ride.
Years ago, there was this overgrown like lot, this lot that was for sale. And I didn't even really know there was a house on it because it was so overgrown with vines and the house was so overgrown too. But it was for sale. My husband was a builder at the time and he would buy land and, put houses on them and sell the houses. And so we drove up the driveway to go check and see what was there. And I just started going, wait. I know this place. And it was something you could not see from the road. I'd never seen it before. And we went in through a back door. And I told him, I said, there's a table that's going to be in the kitchen that folds down from the wall. And there was. It was like
That's very specific.
Yes. And then I said, in the bedroom, there is a bathroom that everything is so pink, like everything, like rugs, towels, shower curtain, the seat cover on, they had like the seat cover on the toilet, like all that, it was like all pink. And all this was still left in that bathroom. It was.
Oh my gosh, that's really crazy.
And I said, also, I remember having there was people playing music on the front porch. And he says, Angie, when we drove up there wasn't a porch on the front of the house. I said, well, that's what I remember. And he got the front door open and you could see where the front porch had fallen in. It was big. Yeah. So It's like, I remember there were people playing music and we were sitting around in the yard out front and listening to the music. And I remember being really dressed up, like in like a beautiful dresses and things. Oh, so crazy. But yeah, and now I need to go by and see where that address is of that of the house that's there now. But now
Yeah, you should research it because that's really interesting. You may find material evidence of your past incarnation.
Mhm.
That happens to people all the time. They'll do research into a place that they feel connected with, and then they'll find the people, and then they'll end up finding their previous avatar, their previous incarnation.
Yeah. Anyway, I
That's
love
that's incredible. That really is.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've never had any. Well, I've had familiarity with places for sure. I definitely have been to certain buildings and certain areas that like it just feels like I've been there before, and it'll be like a completely new place, and it's just like, wow, like I think I lived here at one point, or I feel like I'm connected to this place. And it's such a strange feeling. There's a lot of people that think deja vu is almost like your brain kind of giving you like a second chance to do something. Like, I don't know, it's like a connection point where like you're here at this crossroads and you can choose to take a different path. You know, it's like your consciousness jumping back in time and choosing to take a different path.
I love it. I love it a lot. I might drive over there today and write that address down and do some research.
Yeah, and maybe even see if you can go and walk through it again.
Well, the house is gone. Somebody bought it and then tore it down, and now there's a new house there. But
okay. Oh, that's unfortunate. I mean, at least you got to go through it once.
I did. Yeah,
it was just meant for that one time. But that's really interesting. Yeah, there's definitely been some land that I've been on that I'm like, I know for a fact, like I'm supposed to be here. Like this is where I'm from. I feel the connection. I feel the nostalgia. I felt like that at the beach before. Like I've always felt like this nostalgia, like just looking at the ocean. And it's very weird. And I don't really know how to explain it, but I've like been brought to tears just like looking at the ocean because there's something that my heart feels.
Yeah.
And I don't even really know what it is. I haven't really explored it. So maybe that's something I'll kind of look into within myself.
Mermaid.
I think about that a lot. I'm like, maybe. I definitely do think humans have a connection to the sea that we are not aware of yet. And that's why like I really think that it's going to be so important that the collective starts to kind of deprogram this thinking that we're not connected to marine mammals, because I really think we are. I think there's some kind of connection that we have to them. I think there's a lot of wisdom they can bring us. I think they're very spiritually advanced. You know, maybe not to our understanding or to our conception of what it means to be spiritually advanced. But I think that there's a lot they can teach us for sure.
Whales and dolphins. Wow. I mean, you can feel there's something they make you, at least for me, I feel something when they're around. You know, it's not just, oh, cool. No, it's way more than just a cool experience. It's like
a respect.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a deep respect. I know exactly what you mean, where it's just like, this is a very conscious being.
Yes.
You know, and I think elephants are the same too. I think elephants are highly conscious beings. I mean, there are certain things within their lifestyle choices that indicate that they have some kind of higher form of intelligence. I mean, whales have dialects depending upon what ocean they're in and the different parts of the world that they're in. Like they develop different kinds of clicks. They develop different kinds of sounds based on where they live, like accents, you know, or like just different languages.
I did not know. Yeah.
It's incredible. There's so much to be gained from these beings. And I think a lot of people are just kind of like brushing them off to just being like, oh, like they're just animals, you know, but I think they're more than what modern science has kind of given them credit for. I think that they're highly advanced, even though they may not be advanced in our form. We're like a different kind of advanced. You know what I mean? Like we have our own wisdom and we have our own lessons as a species. They have their own wisdom. They have their own lessons as a species, and we can unify and teach each other a lot. The problem is that we don't speak the same language. You know, they don't have the same kind of verbal communication that we do with each other. So there's that barrier. But I think that that's going to be something that's overcome in the next like maybe 20 to 50 years, maybe even earlier. Like we may see that barrier completely dissolve and we begin to develop the ability to communicate with these beings. I mean, I think some people can already do it. You know, there's a lot of people that can communicate with these beings, but they, you know, they either aren't aware of it or they're not, you know, super focused on it. The collective as a whole isn't really focused on it either. So it's just kind of like here and there, these people can talk to them, they can connect with them. But like we all have to be on board if we really want to learn from these creatures, because they're just very wise. Something tells me that they have a wisdom that we can't even conceptualize yet. And that I guess maybe it is all timely and everything is divinely guided, because, you know, we only integrate knowledge as it becomes ready to be integrated, or at least, you know, in alignment with the progression of the cosmos. But I think that there is a reason why we haven't been able to connect with them, because maybe we're not ready for the wisdom that they bring. Yeah. One second. I think my headphones might have died. Let me see. No, it's saying, okay. It's saying that they're alive. That's weird. Okay, I guess not.
I hear you just fine.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure. I was like, did they cut out? But no. But yeah, no, they're super duper advanced, and I think there's a ton that can be gained from them. I think elephants too. I mean, elephants, they commemorate their dead. They go back and they visit burial sites after they've grieved over loved ones. They're very intelligent creatures, and I think that to say that they're not as intelligent as us is discrediting them a lot. We're just like a different kind of intelligent.
I did not know that about elephants and going back to the burials. That's awesome. You know?
Yeah, I think they have cemeteries. Like I think they have just like natural burial sites where they almost kind of like all will leave their dead. And they all know to go there when they're dying. If I'm not mistaken, I think elephant cemeteries are a thing, and they go back and they'll grieve and they'll mourn their dead. And that's a very strong symbol of higher intelligence, you know, because these beings of lower intelligence don't necessarily mourn the way that we do. I do think lower life forms mourn, and I think they grieve. I mean, we see it with dogs, you know, when dogs pass away, if you have other dogs, like a lot of the times they'll know, you know, they do have a psychic and intuitive connection. But I think that there's something that sets elephants and whales and dolphins, and specifically these larger mammals, apart from the rest of the animal kingdom. I think that they have a level of evolution that surpasses a lot of these like smaller animals. And they're just kind of going in their own spiritual direction, whatever that means for their species. But I do think they are highly intelligent. And I think that over the course of our lifetime, we're going to see people develop a relationship with them. Like I think society is going to start to like integrate to where we start to connect with these beings regularly, and we communicate with them. I see that in our future, and I've seen it so many times, and it kind of sounds absurd, you know, but I truly believe that's going to be one of the accomplishments that mankind makes, is that we make contact with whales and with dolphins, and we're able to communicate with them and develop harmonious relationships with them.
I look forward to it. I wonder if I'll be alive. Probably.
Well, that's kind of another thing that I've channeled too, is that as we get closer to nature, we're just going to get closer to animals in general. And I think that veil and that barrier between us and animals, like the psychic veil, is going to dissolve. And I think it's going to make it a lot easier for humans to develop relationships with animals, like to become more connected to wild animals. I think we'll see less and less wild animal attacks. I think we'll see that maybe even dissipate. I know it sounds like kind of absurd, but like we may see that in our lifetime and maybe beyond. It might not happen in our lifetime, but I think that humanity will connect with animals and will live alongside them, whatever that looks like. I think it's going to be a really interesting blend of like modern society with like maybe tribalistic society where there's a connection to nature and there's an honoring of nature, but we still have these themes of modern civilization, the more advanced, and I say advanced with air quotes because it's really all just perception, you know what I mean? With all of these advancements that we have today, I think we're going to see a really interesting blend of that and kind of like tribalism and ritualism and honoring of Mother Nature. We're going to see that come back.
I definitely feel it. This is not the same thing we're talking about, but just recently I've gotten to where I'm not afraid of snakes. And this is, I mean, I've never been able to be around a snake, and I still really don't want them around me, but like I took a selfie with one the other day that was on my porch, a big one. It was just like, and normally I would not be able to go back out on my porch ever again.
Yeah, if I see one out in the wild, like, but usually if they're like in captivity, I like snakes. Like my sister has a pet snake, and they're cute. I don't know how to explain it.
Well,
There's
my
like a
dog and I,
cuteness to
we were
them.
going down the front porch steps to go for a walk a couple of months ago. And that was the first encounter I've had, like up that close. It was a big black snake was coming up the steps, and it was just looking at me, and I was like, hi. And then I grabbed my phone and took a selfie with it and got up close to it. It's not like me at all. And, but I trusted my dog. She went up and like sniffed it, and, nothing happened. And so I was like, oh, okay. And now I've seen that same snake all around. I actually saw it come out of my garage the other day. And I'm like, oh my God.
I was just about to say that, like, watch you end up seeing this snake more than once, and you already have. That's crazy.
And like yesterday I was out raking, and I know some, other people will be like, what's the big deal about a lizard? But for me, it was a big deal. I went to pick up my rake, and this little green lizard was on it. And I was like, normally I would have been like grabbing a stick, like, go away. And instead I was like, hey, little fella, like, can I hold you? Like thinking, what am I doing? Like, this is not like me at all. But I'm starting to be really just, not afraid of anything out in nature anymore. And
yeah, because there's really not any need to be. A lot of those animals are more afraid of us than we are of them.
Yeah. And that lizard wasn't afraid of me at all. I mean, he just kept coming around at my fingers and like, this is so cute.
Well, one of the things I was going to say was I kind of wonder if it's not some sort of spiritual guidance coming in the form of these animals, like the owl that you've been seeing.
Well, I'm going through the personal things I'm going through in my life right now. The snake, to me, I'm like, I think I even tweeted about it. I was like, I'm not afraid of the snakes anymore.
I was even going to say that too. Like, I wonder if it's not some kind of spiritual protection, because there's a lot of cultures that signify the snake as like spiritual protection.
I feel like it's that. I was looking it all up.
I agree.
What does this mean? Because it's not like me at all, Hannah, to be okay with this snake living here. But
I've always wanted a snake. It makes me wonder if it's a king snake. Is it like a king snake?
It's a rat snake, actually. I think it's just a black rat snake. I shouldn't say
Okay.
just a black rat snake. It's a very special.
Yeah. Well, I've had experiences where like there was one time where a bee came and like sat with me. I was going through a pretty hard time, and I was just sitting outside. I was sitting by myself, and I had this water bottle that was sitting next to me. And this bee just came and like sits on the water bottle. And I remember like picking the water bottle up and moving it, and he didn't move. He just stayed on the water bottle, was just hanging out with me, and was there for like 20 or 30 minutes. Like he just sat with me and he just flew off after that. It was very strange.
Love things like that. Yeah.
I do too. I really love connecting with nature. It's such a magnificent miracle. It really is.
Well, and even what I was doing yesterday when the lizard showed up was that I was clearing the space where I'm going to have my blue moon ceremony, and it's out kind of near the road. And the lady that lives across the street thinks I'm crazy. So I'm thinking like, and I'm thinking, well, she's probably going to see this whenever I do this, because I'm planning on having a group of girls come over. Like, but I feel like that lizard was even like, it was so friendly to me. Like it didn't run from me or anything. I could just hold it, thinking, this is odd. This is
Who knows? Maybe your neighbor will end up joining you.
maybe.
I don't know, but you never know. She might see you guys and be like, that looks fun. I want to be a part of it.
That'll be the day.
Is she the one that you were saying calls you a witch?
Mhm.
Mm,
Mhm.
you never know. I mean, you were able to transmute that lady in the crystal shop, so
That's right. You never
who
know.
knows?
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes like I think our purpose is to, in a way, trigger these people unintentionally,
Uh-huh.
because it's stimulating something within them. It's getting them to think, it's getting them to question everything and to just rethink everything and to really go deep inside. And you never know what's going to come out of that. You plant that seed and you never know what it's going to sprout into.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. When did you say that was going to be?
August 30th at 9:36 p.m.
9:36. Very interesting.
6-9. You got the three numbers in there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And it's a blue moon?
Uh-huh. Well, I don't think it's going to be the color blue, but it's when it's a super moon. It's when a month has two full moons in either 1 month or 1 month.
Yeah, in 1 month.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting astrological alignment because they always say once in a blue moon. So
Mhm.
I always see blue moons like as signifying kind of like the impossible becoming possible,
Yep.
because
So
once in a blue moon, something happens and
thing happens.
potentially changes our lives.
I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, there's a reason that you're getting together with your friends and doing this. Like, even if you don't know it consciously, like there's something subconsciously that's magnetizing you all together to do this event.
I would love to start hosting gatherings of, different teachers and healers and, kind of have a mystery school here. I would love to start doing that.
That would be really awesome. That would be really awesome. The world needs stuff like that right now. Like we really need, structured communities of people who can just come together and enlighten one another and walk each other home.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, I'm sure in the area that you're in, especially, like there's probably a lot of people who believe in this stuff and who are connecting with this wisdom, but they don't have the safe space to be able to discuss it. They don't have the availability to connect with others who are also involved in this space. So, I mean, I think you would be doing a massive service to the community.
I really feel really drawn to do it. So I'm going to try.
And you could even get the community in on it and maybe even host, certain sessions at like local places, you know what I mean? Like local yoga studios, have one class at a yoga studio or, one class at like a crystal shop and get kind of everybody in on it. So it's kind of like it's like a growth pattern of people being able to connect with one another.
Have fun. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've always wanted to start a mystery school too. I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet, but maybe like some years down the line. I've always wanted to rent out or buy out like an antebellum property and turn it into like a mystery school.
Oh, yeah. Count me in.
Because I love antebellum homes. Like they're so gorgeous. And I just feel like, I don't know, like there's so much sacred energy in that land in the South. I really believe there is. And I think that's why there's so much witchcraft. There's a lot of Southern witchcraft in the South.
Come with me and we can go to Madison, Georgia. It's a really cool antebellum town. It's just like 30 minutes from my house.
Yeah, because there's a lot of battlefields in that area. I've been to Vicksburg, and I've been to Gettysburg in Virginia, but I've only been to a couple of Civil War battlefields, but I love the Civil War. That's my favorite war to learn about.
Madison, Georgia was not burned by Sherman and his march to the sea. So all the homes are still there. It's
Oh, it's been preserved.
Mhm.
God,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I love that era. I mean, I'm just fascinated with the antebellum era. It truly is very interesting culturally, like artistically, they were, I mean, just everything was on point. Everything was so beautiful. It's fascinating. It really is fascinating to learn about the division and everything that happened, all of the events that led up to the Civil War. I think we're seeing a lot of that being replicated in the modern era.
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, it's crazy. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I think something is bound to happen here in the United States. I mean, it's really crazy, like with all of these Maui fires and, you know, the British Columbia fires, there's something going on. And then I don't know if you saw, like a bunch of celebrities were like painting their house blue.
No.
So I'll send you the videos that I watched and we can link them in the description box so people can watch them too. But I saw a couple of TikToks that were talking about how blue, so these laser technologies, whatever they're using to start these fires, it doesn't burn a certain type of blue. So these celebrities have been painting their houses blue. And there's literally a video on TikTok where you can see this person shining a laser into the blue and it shines it into different colors and it burns it, but it won't burn the blue. It's something about the wavelength of the color blue that like blocks this
I mean,
laser
I've heard of
frequency.
stories on different things about the color blue. Like now I'm doing the blue moon, but I've done like the blue people. You've heard of the blue people?
No, well, that's like how James Cameron's Avatar.
Yeah. So yeah, I did a thing with Bryce on the blue people on Esoteric Atlanta on her channel. That I figured out are up in Appalachia. That's another whole topic.
It is.
Uh-huh. They lived underground. We'll get into this another time.
Yeah, because that is fascinating, and that ties into Hindu gods and how they have blue skin. And it's like, you know, who's to say that these aren't just people and these religions and these cultures aren't just commemorating spiritually initiated people? Because I truly believe that the human form changes. Like it doesn't just stay the same throughout its evolution. It changes with the earth. We change our composition as the earth evolves. And just as it's gone through its own periods of densification and, you know, non-materiality and non-densification, like we also make those transitions. You know, I think to say that the human race could have blue skin is not that far-fetched.
No.
You know, we definitely evolve, and I think that the composition of our physical form will evolve as we spiritually activate our DNA.
It's got me wanting to check out these celebrities and their blue houses.
Yes, it was like Oprah and all of these people, like all of these people painted their house blue and they were not destroyed by the fires.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send you the links because it was really interesting. Like there's definitely something going on. It just, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't want to like make any guesstimations and like put any fear energy out there. I really have no idea what's going on right now. I've made a bunch of guesstimations and I've thought about it, and there's things that I intuitively can sense, but I want to give it time. You know what I mean? I want to give it time to unfold more before I make a hard decision on like what's going on. But there's something going on.
Understand, because I don't like to put out any of that kind of energy either, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I am curious, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, like we're going to be okay. And I think everything's going to be fine. Like the United States is going to be fine. Humanity is going to be fine. But we just are going through this period of up and down, you know, to kind of get to that more stabilized place as a culture. We're just working through all our karma. That's really what we're seeing here. And we're just along for the ride. Like we can pretty much just be here and be aware and keep connecting with ourselves, keep connecting with Christ. And, you know, Christ will always guide everything. The inner Christ in the self will always guide everything. When you're intuitively connected to your higher self, you will always know what to do. You'll always know where to go. Like everything will maybe seem coincidental, But there's no such thing as coincidences. It's just everything is being guided spiritually.
Right.
And everybody who remains connected to that will always be okay. They will always be protected. It's law, like it's literal spiritual law.
Yeah. That's a perfect way to end this video, because I had our Zoom meeting scheduled for like 2 hours. And so I'm afraid it might cut us off in a few minutes.
No, yeah, this is perfect. This is perfect.
Yeah. But thank you so much for this
Yeah,
happy
this was
hour.
really I know.
For happy
Just like a
hour.
happy hour.
It's almost been 2 hours. So can you believe
Yeah,
that?
because I mean, it is very fulfilling. Like, I feel like I gained so much energy and wisdom from these sessions. Like, it's really nice. It has been so nice.
A lot of fun. And I'm glad my daughter got to meet you, because I've been talking to her about you a lot. She's so into all of this stuff. So
I could tell. I just can sense it. I can sense she definitely picks up on that intuitive sense from you.
yeah. She just cut her hair yesterday. She wanted a wolf cut. I was like, what is that? She did it. She's so proud of herself. But yeah.
Nice. I tried doing a wolf cut, but it didn't really look good with my face. So I'm like growing it out right now. That was what this was at one point.
Cute. Well, I love you so much. And I
love you
know
too.
we'll talk again. So I look forward to whatever you want to talk about next. And
yeah. I mean, we can talk about the Appalachian Mountains and we can get into all of that. We'll figure it out. It'll come to us.
It'll come to us. Something will happen. All right. Well,
Yeah,
I love you, and I'll see you next time. All right.
I love you too. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Hi. So I'm in the Taylor's Cemetery at Black Rock Lake in North Georgia, and come across this, and I just wondered the story. Like, what is the story behind these flip-flops? You know? And then as I look over, it's like, look at all just the unmarked graves. They all have just, somebody has placed these American flags. And just makes you just take a minute and, just makes me at least take a minute and just pause, These are just, it's sacred ground. Then over here, there's like look at this. The sign said that this cemetery was started in the early 1800s, and I have been looking around for graves that would be in the 1800s, like early, and I haven't really found a whole lot of them, but now I see over here, look at this, here they are. Now this makes me want to know the history of that lake you see over there, Black Rock Lake. And why are all these headstones right here like this? Yep. Was there a town over there? And now I'm thinking, was the town called Taylor's? I don't know. I'm getting some upgrades or downloads or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I don't know, but that doesn't look right over there to me. That does not look right. No, it does not. Let's see what this one is over here that looks like it has kind of a fresh flag on. Yeah, Taylor. How did I know? That's so funny. Dudley Taylor. Yeah. Trust your intuition, folks. Trust your intuition. Yeah. All right. I think I've seen enough for today, but now I'm going to do a little research on Black Rock Lake and maybe the Taylor, like Taylor's, Georgia. Look at that beautiful boulder back there. Can you see that? Zoom in. I love this kind of stuff. Yeah. Oh. Yep. I'm gonna do research.